Hi again and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Buri and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the subject of depression, more specifically my alternatives to trying my best to manage it without the use of medication. I am not a mental health expert or professional, so I just want to make that clear. I'm just an individual who has had her fair share of experiences of dealing with depression on a regular basis. Before we begin, of course, as always, I do have a small glass of Merlot at my side. And no, I'm not going to say drink wine for depression because one, I'm not an alcoholic, and two, drinking alcohol when you're depressed is not good for you. So anyway, just want to mention I'm not a mental health professional at all. I don't have a degree in therapy or anything like that. And another thing as well is I don't have a script, so I'm just going to be talking in the way that works for me. And if I do sound off or I sound nervous, as usual, I'm still trying my best to get used to talking in front of a camera, and I'm partially trying to mask that in a sense as well. So yeah. So with depression, people tend to think that it's just about low moods, but it's about more than that. It affects your physical, emotional, and mental well-being, especially when it comes to handling certain things in your life. You know, life changes, work, life admin in terms of taking care of personal responsibilities like your rent, your bills, council tax, childcare, groceries, pet care, mortgages, loans, healthcare. The list pretty much goes on. Now, the thing with depression, at least from personal experience, is that there are times where you often tend to mask it. So, I mean, I have autism as well, so most of my life has practically been spent masking in order to appear quote unquote normal. So I mean, if I am depressed, especially at work, and people are asking me, are you alright or whatever, my default response, to be completely honest, is yeah, I'm alright. Even if people sense that I look off, I just excuse it, saying I'm tired or something, mainly because I guess this is due to cultural experience, at least, you know, the culture that both my parents come from. You know, depression is not taken seriously. So what I mean is, you know, if you are someone whose family is Caribbean, like mine, then you already know that mental health is not exactly a subject people talk about because people perceive that as weakness. So typically with a lot of Black families, and yeah, I'm going there, you are often seen as sensitive or weak if you are experiencing depression because you're sort of taught to be the strong person. You're always taught that this is how you have to be 24/7. So when you do open up and you, I guess, show vulnerability, people don't really like that, which is why you have to, I suppose, conceal your true feelings, if that makes sense, because that is the only way you could cope. I mean, in terms of depression, I have actually had experiences also in secondary school where teachers used to say I was faking it, and they used to think that I was just pretending for attention. And I remember there were times where I would come home from school feeling really low. I would have instances where I actually would avoid going to school altogether because that was the primary reason for the way I felt. And even though my parents would sort of tell me that I had to tell the teachers how I felt, I wouldn't because I couldn't trust them to safeguard me at all, which was why if I felt a certain way, I would just keep my mouth shut rather than talk about it, because why am I going to open up to the same people who failed to protect me when I needed them to. Why would I want to do that? So, you know, with depression in itself, I have had it since, oh my god, it's been a long time. So I've had it since, let's say, the mid 2010s. I have had to deal with it for over 10 plus years. And, you know, obviously in terms of autism, for those of you that don't know, I was diagnosed very early on at the age of 2, and I actually became aware of this when I was reading my medical records, which I have from my teen years, if that makes sense. So, you know, dealing with these things and dealing with adult life is very complicated because you have no idea what you're doing, and half the time in my life I act like I know what I'm doing when clearly I don't. So there you go. Now, when it comes to dealing with depression, especially when working, it's very difficult because, I mean, I've had experiences where I've been on antidepressants. So I've been on antidepressants on and off for I've been on and off for about 4 to 5 years, 4 times, and the side effects from antidepressants are awful. So most of the side effects I experienced included feeling faint or dizzy. You know, I would have a tendency to forget things or put off certain tasks because I just didn't have the physical or mental energy to get up and do simple crap like cleaning. So it's almost like you have a weight on top of you and you're trying to get it off, but you can't. And in the case of eating, there were times where I was not eating properly. So if, say, I had like a bowl of chips in front of me, I would only eat very few, or I would eat nothing. And even if I ate a few, I wouldn't eat much for the rest of the day because my stomach would feel full. And then in terms of sleeping habits, my entire sleep schedule was messed up because there were times where I would feel more tired during the day. So I would sleep during the day and then I would be awake more so at night, especially when I was on the antidepressants the first time round. And when working as well, you know, it was very hard to do multiple tasks because I'm a person who is usually on top of their work. So when I'm working in the office, I am used to handling multiple tasks. I guess it's because the longer I've worked in office environments, even though they don't suit creative minds like mine, I've become used to certain things. And, you know, because I have a bit of a perfectionist mentality as well, I'm so used to doing things to a high standard. I'm so used to being on top of all my tasks. And if I'm not, then it just throws me off and everything just goes wrong. So when I would work whilst being on medication or, you know, the antidepressants, I would have a tendency to forget every little thing. So I would have to use to-do lists to organize myself because I had no idea what was going on half the time, or if one of my colleagues would talk to me, I would zone out a lot and just completely forget everything they were saying to me as well. So there's that. And because I have been on the medication before as well, I do now have a risk assessment at work because the side effects mess up my ability to operate the way I'm supposed to, basically. So I guess this is kind of an overall, let's just say list, if that makes sense, of my experience of going through depression. So now I'm pretty much going to talk about what I do to manage it. So, you know, the thing with medication here is typically if you get it prescribed, I'm not really sure if the prices have changed, but as far as my personal experience, you would pay £9.90 in the UK for medication. and it's renewed if you do like a repeat prescription or something. But again, I don't know if prices have changed because things do change over time. So when it comes to taking the antidepressants themselves, you usually start with 50 milligrams, because typically when I've been on them, I would start with 50 milligrams, and then over time I would have to go to my doctor to review the medication to see if it was working, and if I was ready, I would slowly come off it. So I would go down to 25 milligrams, but then there are times where I have actually weaned myself off it and I didn't really feel any different. So that was what I did the last time, and now I'm trying to basically seek alternatives so that I don't use medication again, even when I'm at my lowest, because my concern is it becomes a crutch, and then I'm giving away all this money to these pharmacies that just want to basically apply tablets in front of you as a quick fix. And I don't really want quick fixes, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I like to do to manage depression is, of course, journaling. Now, I have started journaling since 2017 or 2018 when I was studying at university. I have gone through so many journaling apps like Write a Day, One Day, or I think it's called One Day, Diaro. I've gone through My Diary, but the current one that I use, which I will quickly show you, is called Journey. So with Journey, you can basically write a series of entries based on your day and different things that are happening within the day, if that makes sense. And when you get the lifetime membership or subscription, you have additional features that you can access. So typically I use it to write down lots of different things. Besides things going on in the day, I like to write about my thoughts on topics, and I sometimes like to write stories featuring my original characters. So this is, if you can see, my ideas tab, where I've got entries based on like topics and such, and I mostly write about all these little things in my phone, which you can see here with my nice customized strawberry case that I made, if that makes sense. So yeah, I like to write different things. Now, you could also put down your mood in terms of how satisfied you feel during the day. You can also put down what you're doing, whether you're eating, you're sedentary or whatever, and you can highlight stories with a star. So for example, not stories, I mean entries, sorry. So for example, this is an entry which is like a list of books or audiobooks that I've read or listened to, because I often like to review them. So I have finished 3 titles this month in the Sayuki series, and there's another one that I have to update as well, because I am going back to reading more often, because I don't know, I really love reading and it's something I try to do on a regular basis. Although when I'm working in the office, I often listen to audiobooks. So there's an audiobook I've been listening to called Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy, and I have read her book on her life story as well, about her mum and her tumultuous life, which I would highly recommend as well. So yeah, if you are creative especially, I would highly recommend you use a journal. So you can either do a digital journal or you can do a physical journal, but if say you wanted to use Journey, most of the features are free, but for additional features there's a subscription or a lifetime membership. So because I often use the app between, you know, interchanging with my phone as well as my laptop, if that makes sense, I decided to pay for the lifetime membership, which I think was £119.99 on Google Play, but I'm not really sure if that's changed. I have also created additional journals in Samsung Notes, so I have interchanged between using my phone and my laptop because sometimes I like to handwrite entries as well, mainly long ones, and this is kind of like a journal slash scrapbook in that sense because I like to put pictures of food I've eaten or, you know, just places I like to visit. So this was when I went to an Italian restaurant recently and I put pictures that I took on my phone, I labeled them, and I've got all these cutesy stickers that I purchased from the Samsung store or the Galaxy store as well. And then as you can see, I have different journals for each month and I have a folder for the year. So I hand wrote the titles myself and then put the stickers, which just make things a lot cuter, I guess. So yeah, I like putting stickers in the journal. Another way I would suggest in terms of like managing depression is creative writing. So as of recently, I have gotten back into creative writing. I have an app called Novelist that I use to do all of my like fan fiction and stories that I'm working on. So there's two particular titles, one of which is a book I'm in the process of writing about my experience of autism, and one is called A Series of Anecdotes, which is just stories to do with original characters that I've conceptualized. So at the moment for this particular one, and by the way, these are books I intend to publish at some point, I'm working on a story featuring one of my original characters, Satako, who used to have dreams of becoming a world famous singer, mostly, you know, based in Japan, but then she wasted 3 years doing a degree in music, and she works as an admin assistant in a job that pays barely above minimum wage, and she lives in a tiny one-bedroom flat which costs over £1,000 per calendar month. So in a sense, when it comes to, you know, creative writing, my best ideas come out when depressed. And on top of that, I like to sort of take little bits and pieces of my own life and just use it as inspiration when it comes to conceptualizing stories for my characters. So this one that I'm working on is kind of based on my experience of working in my second job, minus certain things like the addiction to cigarettes, because I don't smoke. So with this particular story, Satako has developed a cigarette addiction because smoking is a stress reliever. I don't know how this is gonna end, but I got up to the part where I talk about her mundane routine and how she feels like a failure and she's afraid of going back to her family for help, especially because her mum, who is very critical, would question her life choices. So, you know, for her parents, in terms of the concepts I've had for them, her father was more so the encouraging parent who would push her to go for her dreams, and her mother wanted to become a singer, but then, you know, she auditioned for some 2-bit television show. The judges told her she sounded like a pub singer doing karaoke. She got rejected, her parents criticized her, and the generational cycle repeats itself. So basically I got up to the part where I talk about Satako's eating habits, as you can see here. I basically wrote about her meal deals that she gets from Tesco with her little options, and the fact that she often skips lunch to go smoke cigarettes outside the office with one of her colleagues. So yeah, creative writing is a good help. And speaking of, as you may or may not know, I have recently launched a website which is a personal blog. So my personal blog is based on my art, travels. So speaking of art, it's mainly going to be in terms of like art galleries I like to visit and like my own stuff that I like to do, like resin crafting. And I've also launched an Etsy, so stock will be added soon. Stock will be updated in Ko-fi gradually as well, because I'm trying to manage real life at the same time. But anyway, I've launched a blog. I am going to post a link in the description, of course, and the link will probably be edited edited here because, as usual, I do edit these videos a bit before posting them. So yeah, I used to do blogging on my professional portfolio, then I stopped and I decided to go back to it because I actually enjoyed doing it. So I use Wix for my website, and my website / blog is called www.bulliana.com. Again, that's going to be edited more than once probably, and you can go for the link in the bio and in the description. So it's www.bulliana.com. So this is where is it? So this is the app, the Wix app, I mean. So let's view the website. So here it is. This is my personal blog now. So if you want to visit it, if you like reading stuff about the topics I mentioned, you can. So yeah, I would recommend getting a blog, or doing a blog again if you love creative writing. Hi again. This is technically the editing side. So the reason why this video is split is because I had a phone call and I didn't want that to come up on camera. So to continue, there is an app that I use to manage depression which is called Daylio. I use this to record my overall mood as well as my activities in terms of what I'm doing, what I'm eating, and also in terms of mental health. You can place goals on here, so I have 3 goals, one of which is to reduce alcohol consumption, which is going well, one of which is to reduce caffeine consumption, which is 50-50 because caffeine tends to be the favourite of office workers, and one of which is to read and listen to books more, which is something I've been doing every day. Also with this, you can look at your overall mood chart over the month. So my mood has gone up and down, mainly because there's certain things pertaining to work that have made me feel depressed, to be completely honest. And you also have achievements and an overall observation of how you've been feeling throughout the month, your activities, that kind of thing. And you can also edit categories as you go along. Now with Daylio, of course, the free version has few features, and if you want full features, typically you have to pay for a subscription, but in my case I have a modded version of the app so that I don't necessarily have to pay for a subscription at all. So if you are interested, I can send a link in terms of where I get my version of the app from. So besides the journaling and the creative writing, exercise helps me manage depression. So I think I might have mentioned in a few videos that I now do indoor biking as well as stretching, considering that I alternate between the two. Today I did indoor biking, so I mainly try to do at least 5 minutes a day when I can. I try to do it on a regular basis, and I also use my health app to record my water intake, my mood, because now there's a feature for that, and sleeping habits. And at times, and I will show you what I mean, I use my Galaxy Watch to record my sleep, and I use it when I'm recording like my water intake as well as my exercise habits. So this is my Galaxy Watch 8. You might not be able to sort of see the watch face because of the brightness, so I will turn that down. But this is my Samsung Galaxy Watch 8, which I use to record certain health features, and obviously it's like myself and my phone, very extra, because I have a habit of customizing. So I've got my custom Hello Kitty watch face that I made on Watch Face Studio here, and I also have the bumper, which is in pink, and the little silver charm and the pink straps that come with the watch. So that's what I use when recording health habits and medication as well in terms of managing depression. Although in the case of the UK edition of the app, there is no medication feature, so I have to change the CSC code to either the Korean version or the US version to get that feature. So one other method that I have used recently to help with depression is the sensory deprivation therapy. So with sensory deprivation, this is where you lay in a tank that's filled with like warm water and Epsom salts. And besides helping with, say, physical pain, say if you've got arthritis, for example, sensory deprivation helps for people who have depression. I tried it recently last year and I tried to do it once a month. I haven't done it at all this month, but I had a package that I paid for I think it was £99, where I get 3 sessions. So I'm going to book a session for myself in February as well as March. So normally when I do it, I do use a cap because I don't like getting Epsom salts in my hair, as it's very time consuming to get my hair dry. So I have a swim cap that I normally use when I do it. But when I'm in the tank, I often close my eyes and I just allow myself to float in the dark. Although usually in the tank you can put some calming lights on and you have music to sort of get you in the mood for relaxation as well, and the session lasts for an hour. One thing I've noticed since doing sensory deprivation is I do tend to think a lot more, and sometimes I feel like I'm hearing my own voice, or I do have experiences of, let's say, visions. And I am going to probably do another video where I talk about my experience in detail of going to do a tarot reading. I briefly mentioned it in the first video in this series, but I wanted to talk about it in more detail because recently I have sort of leaned into sort of spiritual methods, if that makes sense. So I have a crystal ball with my angel number on my desk, I have a chakra tree, and I have a moon calendar on my phone as well, because sometimes I do believe there are, let's say, certain, I don't know, signs and such. So yeah, I guess this is gonna be the end of today's video. So these are basically the main methods I use for coping with depression. Let me know what else you use, of course. And again, these are just my alternatives. So if they work for you, that's great. If they don't, fair enough, because different things work for different people. But wherever you are, if you do have any form of depression, I hope you are trying to manage the best you can, because life can be hard. So until the next one, well, what else can I say?